Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Sarah Muriello with Pasadena Humane, and with us today is Behavior Specialist Rochelle Guardado. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, how is everyone doing?
We're really happy that you're able to join us today. Our webinar's topic is Headed Back to Work, Prepare Your Pet. We know that a lot of you are maybe heading back to the office, even for brief periods of time, or to your workspace, and you've been with your pets day in and day out. And so we want to give you some tips and tricks for getting them used to your not being home all day long. Before we start, before I turn it over to Rochelle, I do want to share some webinar reminders with you. All right. So one thing about this webinar is that you should be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. You're automatically muted as attendees. And you should be able to see us and or our screens, but we can't see you. We're going to ask that you save your questions for the end. And the reason for that is that we're hoping that Rochelle will answer your questions during the presentation, but also there will be time at the end for a Q&A session. Now, the way that you're going to ask your questions for the Q&A is through the chat box, which you can see an example of on your left. It may look a little bit different depending on what device you're using, but you're looking for that questions or chat box dropdown. We ask that you not use the hand feature, the raise your hand feature, because we're not going to be able to hear you during this particular webinar. So please go ahead and submit your questions through the chat box rather than raising your hand. So you'll see that chat box under the questions drop-down menu. I'm the only one who will be able to see your question, and as time permits, I'm going to go ahead and get your question over to Rochelle during that Q&A portion. If you're having difficulties with audio or anything else, you may need to check your device or computer settings and then try logging out of the webinar and logging back in. We do want to remind you of a couple other webinars we have in June. Our behavior and training manager, Fernando Diaz, is going to present Why Does My Pet Do That? Understanding and Managing Problematic Behaviors, and that's for both cats and dogs. That's on June 10th from 12 to 1, so next Wednesday. And then we also have Preparing to Say Goodbye, Anticipating Pet Loss on June 17th, and that will be hosted by Pet Loss Partners co-founder Sandra Grossman. And so if you would like to register for any of those webinars, you can do so at pasadenahumane.org/workshops. And as a reminder, all of our webinars are recorded. So if you register for a webinar but can't attend the live broadcast, you will still receive an email with a link to the webinar recording the following day. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Rochelle. Just give us one moment to switch screens.
Okay, guys, let me just a second while I get this going. Hang tight. All right. So thank you so much, Sarah, and everyone that is attending. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to attend this. I really appreciate it, and hopefully your pet will too. So, you know, we've all been, well, a lot of us have been working from home for what, over like 2 months now. And that uncertainty that came when we all had to suddenly switch our work life to home was pretty stressful. It was for me. And there's a lot of uncertainty in that, right? And so when we jumped into that, we're like, well, how's it gonna be? Can I even work from home? And now maybe it's been a couple months and you're starting to kind of settle in to working from home and maybe even digging it a little bit. And I bet you our cats and dogs are really liking that, some of them anyways. And we're just now adjusting to that kind of work from life stuff going on, so work from home life going on. So now that we're going to be starting to go back to work and back to the office, we want to take a more measured approach rather than just jumping right in like we had to do when all of this safer at home COVID-19 stuff started happening. So we know that stress can happen when things change very suddenly, right? And when we're stressed out, our pets really notice that. So when we're gonna begin to go back to work, instead of just jumping back in the way things used to be, we should try to mentally prepare ourselves, not just our pets, but us to get back to work too. And realizing that heading back to work might be more difficult for someone, it might be easier for someone else in the household. Maybe someone already was working from home in the household and they're like ready for you to get back to work. And just know that it's hard and everyone processes it differently, right? And you want to make sure, you know, I know for me too, like I've been eating ice cream late at night and trying to deal with all this stress in my own way. And, you know, getting back on a regular eating schedule like you were when you were working is pretty important. And going outside and getting a little bit of exercise and fresh air is important for not only your pets, but for you too. So like many of us, our pets really thrive on routine. I don't know about you, but I really like to have certain times a day where I do certain things. And our pets do too. When there's predictability in our day-to-day activities, our pets are really better able to cope with things that might happen that's not normal. So if you have predictability generally in your pet's life, then they'll be better equipped to deal with, say, when you go on a vacation or when there's a holiday and you've got Christmas trees and decorations in your house, or there's family coming over. They're a little bit better able to cope with that stuff if you already have some predictability going on. And when we often overlook how these things affect our pets, right? So we might be having a grand old time having parties and having holiday time, but our pet is like, what is going on, right? So try to really look at things from your pet's perspective if you haven't already been doing so. I'm sure a lot of you have already noticed how all of this has been affecting your pet, and that's great if you've been noticing that they really like it or maybe not so much. And that goes to say for us too, right? So some people are having a pretty good time in their jammies, reading their emails and doing work in their bed. And some of us really need a separate workspace and more of a routine and separate area to do our works. So that being said, not only are we processing all of this differently, but our pets too. And you know, sometimes our cats will really love it when we're home, right? Because we're playing with them more and they get more treats during the day and more pets and couch time. But maybe some cats don't like it that you're sitting on the couch all day because that's where they used to sleep, right? So they're like, hey man, get out of there. So different perspectives from different pets. Not all dogs will even enjoy you being home all day, believe it or not. Some of them are like, I just want to rest, and now you're making me walk all the time. You're trying to engage with me more, and I just really need some downtime. So really try to pay attention to your dog and their body language, and your cat too. Not all cats are the same. So I know that these fun things that I put up there kind of put cats into a category of they just want you to leave, but that's not true. Like some cats really are enjoying you being home all day. So these stress related behaviors that you're seeing, they are because the cat or dog is having a hard time dealing with what's going on. So if you have a more unpredictable schedule, or maybe you're sleeping in a lot, or sometimes you wake up early, your meal times are different now, that's a change in routine for the pet too. And also they could just be bored, but that's a kind of stress too. And I want to make sure that you guys realize that our pets are not jerks for knocking off your favorite coffee mug off the counter. You come home and your dog has chewed your favorite chew. It's not because they're retaliating against you, and it's not because they're trying to show you that they didn't like it, that you left. And I know it's really hard sometimes for us to look at it from the dog or cat's perspective, and we just feel like what's happening to us, like, oh my gosh, my coffee mug is now on the floor and it's broken. So really think about, how is your pet handling this? And don't blame him for being a jerk, for knocking things over. I mean, really think about, like, is he having a hard time? Maybe he's bored, and that's why he knocked something over. So our pets aren't out to make us feel miserable and to retaliate against our actions. They're behaving in the now, and if they're bored now, they're gonna knock off things that are on the counter, or the dog might start chewing something that you left out. So look inward a little bit and say, like, oh, I shouldn't have left my shoes out, and don't take it out on your pets. So we know that stress can lead to some issues, right? And these really subtle changes in your cat's behavior or your dog's behavior might go unnoticed by us, right? So we might not start noticing that our pet is slight changing in sleeping patterns, or maybe he's not eating as much as he used to, or he refuses his breakfast and eats a lot at night now. Or maybe you didn't really notice the fact that he's getting a little bit irritable, like when you go to take his bone away or play with him with a toy and he just doesn't want to. His activity level might decrease or maybe increase, and he's getting more hyperactive. Maybe you didn't really notice that one time when he pottied somewhere that it was because of stress. But what we tend to notice are the destructive behaviors, right? So we're like, I'm pulling my hair out because my dog or my cat chewed on something, or they're scratching at the door or something like that. Like, we tend to notice that stuff more. And we're not really attuned to the subtle stress signals that our pets are giving us. So really pay attention to that body language. And again, looking inward at ourselves and realizing that don't label the act that your pet did. Don't label your pet, rather, but label the act that your pet did. So your cat is not a jerk, but he did a jerky thing, but your cat is not a jerk, right? Or your dog isn't just being naughty because he is trying to irritate you, right? So we want to really see the underlying causes of what is causing your animal's behavior. So prolonged anxiety can really lead to these behavior issues. And you want to look out for uncharacteristic actions that your dog is doing, destructive behaviors and the like. And we want to focus on treating that rather than treating those problems. So we want to treat the stress before it happens and keep our pets happy and thriving. It's always easier to prevent a lot of these things than to go back and work on the house soiling or working on the destructive behavior. And we don't want all those little stressors to explode into something prolonged and lead to illness either. So when this Safer at Home happened, we all had like an abrupt change from our work life, right? So looking forward, we want to wean ourselves onto a new routine. So what does that look like? What can we do to wean ourselves? So instead of just leaving for an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours a day right away, just take small breaks. So if you're lucky enough to be able to know ahead of time before you have to go back to work, it's a good idea to start now, just to, you know, take a little extra time going to the mailbox and getting the mail, maybe going to the garden and spending some time out there alone without your pet. So if your dog is already knows that you're there, you know, out in the garden, and he's like, usually, you know, my dog does this. He's like, he knows I'm out there, and he usually is out there with me. So he might fret a little bit, or scratch at the door or bark. So if that's too much for him, then just go a minute or two and build up on that. So set some realistic goals that make it not only easy for you, but for your pet as well. And so choosing one thing a day or even every 2 or 3 days is probably best. And change something that's really easy for you at first. Don't go for the hard one. So if you have a hard time waking up in the morning, don't go tomorrow, I'm gonna start waking up at 7:30. Change it slowly. So if your easiest thing to do is have a meal time at a certain time, change that first. So if you know that normally you are going to be getting off work at 5 and you'll get home maybe at 6, then start feeding your dog at 6:30. So you give yourself a little buffer there so that you know that if something takes you a little extra time to get home, your dog won't be nervous and waiting for his mealtime that normally is happening at 5:30 or 6. So if that's something you can change that's easy, choose that. Everyone's different. Maybe having a nice nap time right now when you're home is going to be best for you. So have a nap time with your dog, and that's okay because it'll get him used to having a nap time during the afternoon too. So again, picking something that's very easy for you and then build up on that so that each day or each week, however long that you have, you can start to build up that routine. And then making sure that that schedule is going to end up working out for you if you are lucky enough to know what your schedule will be. And then that way, you know, you're not waking up at a certain time and then right now, and then later when you go to work, you can't really feasibly do that. And be honest with yourself. Like, are you going to really wake up at 4:30 in the morning so you can get in an hour walk with your dog and then come home and stuff his Kong enrichment toys and feed him that way before you have to take a shower and get into traffic? So if you think that you'll be able to set something like that up and you'll be honest with yourself and know that you can do that, then go ahead and start to build on that new routine. But if that's not really feasible for you and you know you are not a morning person, then don't really try to do that now, right? Be pretty realistic with yourself if you can. So while you're working on your new routine, you might notice that your pet is showing a couple signs of some mild stress or boredom maybe. And enrichment can really help with that. I love enrichment toys. So you might be thinking, what the heck is an enrichment toy, Rochelle? I have no idea what you're talking about. So maybe some of you have heard of Kong toys, those little or large red or black rubber toys that your dog can chew on, and you can shove them full of food and treats. Most people know about those. If not, you can look it up. It's Kong, K-O-N-G. Or There are other toys too. That's not the only one out there. I know a lot of people rely on that, and that's great, but variety is great for our pets and for our cats too. People forget that cats need enrichment too. So I've got a picture of on the upper left of a food dispenser for cats, or you can use it for small dogs, honestly. You fill up their kibble at the top and it kind of dispenses at the different areas below, and your cat or small dog will have to use his paws to get that food out. So it gives them kind of an activity to do rather than just eating from their regular food bowl. And then in the middle, I have an egg carton, which if you eat eggs, you can definitely save these for enrichment. And they're great because they're free. And you can put wet food in them too. So you can use this for dogs or cats. And if your cat or dog tears up that item, it's okay. In fact, that's great, right? Because they're doing something with their paws and their teeth, and they're doing what cats and dogs need to do, right? Which hunt and forage for their food and tear up things. Those are normal behaviors that animals need to do, and they're great stress reducers. Another kind of treat dispenser or food dispenser on the upper right there with the orange kitty at it. That is maybe more advanced. So if your cat is already bored with the egg carton, you can move over to something like this. They have to reach in and dig out the food. I have used it with wet food, but it works a little better, I feel, with kibbles. But you could put wet food in there if you wanted to. And then for dogs, I love snuffle mats. Dogs need to sniff. They need to chew. They need to lick things. And that all is very calming for dogs. So if you give your dog some things to sniff out, you can just scatter your dog's kibble on a mat like this, called a snuffle mat, or you can even just use really like a bath mat. As long as he's not chewing at the fibers and ingesting those, it's fine. My dog loves to just sniff. I throw the kibbles out on the lawn. You can just do that, and he has to sniff around and hunt for it. It takes him longer to eat, so that's more healthy, and it's giving him something to do with his brain. And he's tired afterwards. So sniffing is so super important for our cats and for our dogs. And you can make handmade things. If you have boxes at home, you can keep the brown paper from the Amazon boxes that you get and just put toys, treats, or chewy items inside those things, so they have to go hunt them out. And you're using this whether you're at home with your dog right now, or even when you're back at the office, you can use that to entertain your pets. If you're hearing meowing, that's my office cat, Franklin, so sorry about that if he's disturbing you guys. So I don't have to tell you that we are in unprecedented times right now. Our days can be fairly uncertain, and we're probably having more stressful days now more than ever. And you might respond to normal daily disruptions or, little things that normally you could deal with, but now you might have kind of a short fuse with some things, right? So an example might be you're having a frustrating Zoom meeting at work, and then you just realize you're out of toilet paper, and then your roommate just ate all your cereal, and you're like, and normally you would just be like, hey, and kind of brush it off and kind of deal with it. But now you're having a big deal with it, right? You're kind of blowing up and saying things that you normally might not say. So recognize your own stressors right now and realize that you might not be interacting with your pet the way you normally would. So if your pet did something that upset you, or maybe they, cat threw up in your slipper and you stepped in it or something like that, and now you're just really blowing up, whereas normally you just clean up and go along and everything would be okay. So really recognize your own stress before you start dealing with your roommates, your housemates, your pets. And let's be mindful of our pets' body language too. So if you see in this picture, of someone who's probably enjoying that hug more than the other one. So and this is a very obvious picture of a dog who's like does not like hugs, at least right now in this situation. So you're probably thinking the dog's in a new area, it's not at home, the person's been restraining the dog for a long time, and he's like, get me the heck out of here, right? So what do you notice? What makes that dog look like he's terrified or wants to get out? So kind of look at it. So you can see his eyes. You can see the whites of that dog's eyes. He's showing what we call whale eye. So if you notice that in your dog, he's probably pretty uncomfortable. Dog's mouth is open, but it doesn't look loose and happy, right? It just looks like, it's pinned back and really tense, right? And just where he's leaning, you know, he's leaning away, he's pulling away from his loving owner there. So, you know, who's getting something out of this? The owner is, right? And the dog's probably not really enjoying that. So if that dog were to growl all of a sudden, most of our instincts would be to punish that or say no, right? Because we are taught to think growling is bad, but actually it's a good communication symbol. Growling is really good. So you never want to punish a dog for being anxious. That's just not a great idea. It's like punishing someone if they are afraid of spiders. And now someone sees a spider and, you know, they kind of do that freak out where they go, and brush off the spider from their arm. Like you wouldn't want to punish someone for acting like that, right? You want to get the spider away and let them calm down and talk about it afterwards. So really be cautious when you are noticing some body language symbols from your dog. They're pulling away, panting, showing that whale eye. They have a low tail, maybe they're whining a little bit. Really refrain from punishing that in your pet. And you want to make sure too that you're giving your dog what he needs so that we can take out from that account. So it's like a trust account with your cat or dog, right? So if normally you let the pet do things that he likes and you give him treats and play and let the cat go away from you when he doesn't want to interact, you're putting in trust into that account, right? And then of course we love to cuddle and hold our animals, right? I hug my dog. I know dogs don't really like to be hugged that much, but sometimes I need the hug from him. So yeah, it's okay to hug your dog, right? But note the amount in your trust account. If you're always hugging your dog and always restraining your dog and he just like doesn't even want to come and sit next to you anymore, take a look at that relationship. You know, put some more effort in, get some more trust in there so that when you have to take a little hug withdrawal, it's going to be okay and he'll tolerate. I know my dog will tolerate me hugging him for a few seconds and then he's like, okay, I'm out of here, lady. Got your hug, now go away, right? So make sure we are really noting when it feels good for us. Does it really feel good for our dog when we're hugging him, or is it just us getting everything out of it? So really reevaluate the next time you're restraining or hugging or making your dog or cat sit on the couch. I know this happens with cats a lot where people want them to sit on their lap while they're watching TV and the cat starts to like get up and you do that where you push them kind of back down a little bit. So yeah, you know, everyone's guilty. I do it too. But just don't do it too much and let your dog or cat have a choice in the matter. And know when to take a break both ways. And that goes with your dog brings you a toy and you just got home from work and you're super tired, or your dog brings you the leash and he's like, let's go for a walk, mom. And you just like, you've had it that day. You just really need to decompress. And that's okay. Like, don't feel like every time your dog brings you a toy or the leash that you have to. You're not a bad pet parent if you skip a walk. So if you have to decompress a little bit, that's better. And you know, you have to prioritize both of your needs, right? So if your dog really needs to play and you haven't played with them in several days, of course, take that time to play. But if it's just one day and you just don't have it in you that day, hey, it's okay to take a break. So I know a lot of you are wondering if your pet is going to get separation anxiety when you head back off to work. Or maybe you're in a situation where you're already working in the office a few days a week, and you're wondering if this is going to harm your pet because you had to do it all of a sudden. We want to talk about separation anxiety versus separation related behavior issues. I know that sounds like nitpicking, but separation anxiety is really severe stress. So a veterinary behaviorist or your veterinarian might categorize separation anxiety as a dog who is severely injuring himself or trying to jump through windows to get out to be with you, chewing through walls, like in the picture on the left. This is very severe stuff, guys. Maybe even dogs who would probably have to be on medication for something like that, versus these, what I'm calling separation related behavior issues. So yes, it's stress, but is it really prolonged anxiety? If you feel like your pet is getting severe anxiety, it's a really good idea to take a look from professional help. We can help you here if you use our behavior helpline, which we'll talk about later, to determine whether or not your dog is experiencing severe stress or if they're just bored or showing mild forms of stress. So if your dog chewed up your slippers or chewed your furniture leg or tore up all your pillows, it's probably boredom and or some mild stress. So don't make yourself anxious about thinking about your pet getting separation anxiety once you go back to work because they've been with you this whole time. I will say that if you have a puppy or a geriatric older dog, being with them this whole time, they probably are just now getting used to this new routine of having you there. And for a puppy, think about the percentage of its life that he's been with you, right? Versus an adult 1 to 5-year-old dog or so, or an older dog if you've been with them a long time. This shelter in place might affect young dogs and older dogs more. So if you're concerned about that, again, reach out to us. And you can also reach out to some great organizations to help find a trainer in your area. And many of these trainers will be doing Zoom calls if you're worried about them coming into your home now. A lot of them aren't yet. But please do reach out to these organizations if you feel that your dog is encountering severe separation anxiety stress. One of the organizations you can reach out to is the IAABC, which is the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. Another organization you can reach out to is the CCPDT, which is the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. And you can find awesome dog trainers who specialize in separation anxiety at the website melenademartini.com. So whether you're working from home or back at the office, your pet's daily routine should include all of these things. And so what are all of these things? Of course, playtime, and not just playtime, but interactive playtime. And that goes for you cat owners. I know I'm guilty of this too, and I'm a cat behavior specialist, so I know that a lot of people struggle with just getting out some playtime time for your cat, especially like in the morning. You know, you got to wake up a little extra early and play with your cat. But man, I'm telling you, most of my behavior issues that I deal with my clients are mainly solved by adding in playtime with your cat and playing with your dog too. So it's not just a walk, right? This is interactive stuff that we're doing to play with our animals. It's not just providing toys and maybe throwing them once on the floor and then seeing your cat pounce on it and then walk away. This is way more interactive. So if your cat likes to fetch, yeah, sure, throw the mouse toy. If the cat will bring it back to you, you can throw it again. But most cats will prefer to play with a wand toy type situation. And for our dogs, all dogs like to play differently. Do you even know? Do you know what kind of toys your dog prefers to play with? Does he like to tug? Does he like to fetch? Does he like to chase things? Does he like to be chased? Or does he want to chase you? So find out what your dog really enjoys and switch it up too. It doesn't have to be the same thing all of the time. So playtime is super important. What else in your routine are you going to do? How about some enrichment or some what I call tearing up things time? So dogs and cats really love to like destroy things, right? I don't know if you've noticed, but my cats and dogs certainly will find the opportunity and find things I leave around the house if I'm not careful to tear up, and that's okay. Like letting them tear things up is good. It does help relieve stress. So finding some time in your day that you can let your dog tear up some boxes, some cereal boxes, egg cartons. You know, occasionally if it's safe and I'm observing them, I'll let them kind of tear up a certain kind of plushie toy as long as they're not ingesting anything. And then you'll also want to make time for training, right? So that goes for cats and dogs. And I know some of you are like taking a spit take or laughing. You're like, right, train my cat, you're crazy. I'm not crazy. Training your cat is super cool. And you should train your cat. They can do really fun stuff. How many times, you know, does your cat come running when you open up that cat food lid? Right? So that's just a sound that the cat got used to, and now he knows that's food time. So if you find a favorite treat for your cat, you can get him to do all kinds of things. You can call your cat and he'll come to you for the treat. And I know people are like, yeah, right, but really it works. So try training your cat and your dog, finding some time throughout the day to do that kind of interaction and to build their skills, and not just ask them to sit or lay down, but fun stuff that's fun for you to teach and fun for your dog to learn. So learning is really great. It's a good skill, and building up new skills is always good for mental stimulation. Cuddle time should be in your routine. So just having some couch time, you know, your dog's awake and you're petting them, enjoying each other's company, just calmly. That's really good, especially like after playtime. That's a great time to do cuddle time afterwards. And of course, you'll want to do some rest, right? So your dog does need to rest throughout the day. They're not like us where they're awake, you know, or working 8 hours a day. They do need to rest throughout the day. So these little interludes throughout the day can help, and they do need to rest. So normally when we're gone for the 8 hours or 9 hours, whatever it is, that we're going to eventually be gone from them, you can leave the stimulation set for them to do or something for them to chew, but they'll probably be resting for most of the day. So that really, you need to think about that, because, you know, if they're resting most of the day while you're gone, even though you come home and you're kind of exhausted and don't really want to do anything, that's when your dog does want to do stuff. And that's when you start to get some behavior issues where dog's jumping on you, or your cat is, again, knocking things over off the coffee table, or trying to jump up while you're cooking. Carving out a little bit during the day after you get home from work to do one of these items is gonna be really beneficial. But all of these things in your animal's routine should be, whether you're working from home right now or back at the office. They still need to have all of these things. And then of course, food time, right? And you can feed from a bowl, that's okay, but hey, why not do that from one of those enrichment toys? It'll be really great for your pet. So now that you know what should be in your pet's routine, I want to have you think about what you learned from yourself and your pet while you've been at home. I hope this presentation really gets you thinking about what's important to you and to your pets. For me, I've had, a lot of time at home, and I was working a little bit in the office, but when I was home, I really appreciated being with my pets and having a less rushed atmosphere in the morning. But so I just want you guys to kind of pause before rushing back to an old schedule. So what things did you appreciate about your work from home life? Not only that, but what things did you like to have eliminated from your previous schedule? So was your old schedule really that great? Do you really want to go back to that? Or can we work on a new routine that includes more morning cuddle time, morning play time, or maybe more afternoon play time when we get back from work? All of these things that your pet is enjoying, can we make room in our new routine for these things? And how can we improve and enhance our relationship with our pet by slightly changing that old routine? I hope that a lot of you will be able to slowly get back to work. And I know that not everyone's situation is the same. So if you're lucky enough to have your own schedule set, consider maybe a flex schedule or coming home from lunchtime and visiting your pet during lunch, if that is feasible for you. I know not everyone can do that, but if you're lucky enough to have a flex schedule where you can work partly in the office and then come home and do the rest of your stuff at home, that would be really awesome and a new way of living that might be great. Something that we would learn from all of this that we've been living through. And I kind of want to talk to you about exercise. So I know a lot of the stuff that I've said for dogs especially has been more like enrichment and tearing up stuff and playtime and not really talking about walks. So why is that? So most people think of walking your dog as a physical exercise that we do daily, maybe twice or 3 times daily, depending on your dog's activity level. But a walk shouldn't just be all about exercise, and it shouldn't be a chore or burden for you. So if you're waking up 10, 15, 20 minutes or an hour early to walk your dog, only to race around the neighborhood and get a certain distance and come back home in a certain amount of time, and you're kind of, struggling with your dog, maybe he's pulling forward or maybe you're pulling him around, that's no fun for anybody. So your walks should not be a chore. Hopefully, you're letting your dog sniff more. And if you get anything out of this, I would say the most important thing is to let your cats and your dogs sniff more. Even if you just go a few houses down your street and you don't even walk that far, but take the same 15 or 20 minutes time to just let your dog sniff. Most of us are in a hurry when we're walking our dogs and we're like, let's go. And they start to sniff something. You're like, come on, you gotta go potty. And so like, what's the real reason you're taking your dog out? Is it to let him go potty and to exercise, or is it to give him some enrichment? So think about that next time you're out with your dog walking. And I know right now it's a very difficult time, and we want to make that consideration too, that we might have to hurry up to get back home. But think about how far you're going. You don't have to go that far outside your house to let your dog have some enrichment and sniff time. And I also want to make sure too that you guys realize, yes.
Hi, I think we need to leave some time for the Q&A.
Sure.
Would it be possible to go ahead and start taking some questions?
Absolutely. But I want to make sure too that everyone knows to cut yourself some slack and to be kind to yourself and to your dogs and to all your roommates. And if you can't do this routine, and it's okay to not walk your dog, it's okay to have some cuts in your routine and to be kind to yourself.
All right, so we're going to turn our cameras back on so that we're not these disembodied voices. Before we start getting the questions over to Rochelle, she did mention that we have a free behavior helpline if you have any questions that are a little more specific for your animal. So the number's on the screen, 626-792-7151, extension 155. And you can also email our behavior specialists at behavior@pasadena-humane.org. And finally, we're also doing pet behavior consultations via Zoom, and you can register for one of those at pasadena-humane.org/training. All right, Rochelle, would you be able to turn on your camera so that we could see you? Okay, so the questions that we're currently getting, let's see here. Rochelle, you're able to turn on your camera?
Yeah, I'm turning it on. It says people can see my screen. Can you not?
Yeah, we can see your screen, which is great. We'd love to see you though. So if you could hit the camera on.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. I got it.
All right. So the first question that we have is, this person tries to separate, keep a separate space between work and sort of like home, so that there's a bit of a routine, if you will. And so she says that, or he or she says that they do take breaks to visit their pet, their dog, but then the dog seems to just be right there, so all the time, so following the person everywhere and not necessarily taking independent time for himself. Does this seem unhealthy to you, Rochelle, or what might this person be able to do? I
definitely think that if your dog team or cat seems very attached to you and follows you around, to be mindful to offer something for that dog to chew or lick or do that's apart from you, and keep it really short right now. So you might only get like a minute of alone time, and then slowly expand that out. So don't try to have them be alone in a room for an hour straight off the bat. It may, for some dogs, be easier for them to just chew up a very small amount of time, like a minute, 2 minutes, and that's it. So build from there.
Another question we have is, should they try, people maybe who haven't been using that or been able to sort of separate their workspace from regular living space while they've been working from home, should they try to simulate that with their pet, sort of trying that separation in the meantime?
Yeah, they could try to do, if they're working from home, you mean, and they have a separate space. Yeah, they can start to do that, where the same thing with the other person whose dog follows them around. You can give your dog something to do in a separate room, so that you're working and they're in a separate room and they're okay with that. What you want to do if they're whining or looking after you, or they're starting to like claw at your door or something like that, is to get them something that you know is super exciting for them and that they will engage with that instead of trying to find you.
So it sounds like the general recommendation is sort of a slow introduction into that new routine. So not necessarily spending hours right away from them, but sort of working towards that.
That's ideal if you can.
The other question that we had was about backsliding with house training. Very interesting. So this person says, I'm especially worried about my pets backsliding with house training. That's their way of showing their unhappiness when we leave. How should I handle this? And I guess also, is going potty in the house a sign of that your pet is displeased with you, or is it a sign of something else?
Yeah, so that is probably, it could be a health question. So always ask your veterinarian if they're taking appointments now. I would definitely get the dog or the cat in to investigate that in a medical manner first, so we don't want to assume that's just behavioral. And then we also don't want to assume that the dog or cat is doing that to spite us, right? It's not really their way of showing displeasure, but it is a way that they are showing their stress. So let's find out what the underlying stress is first and work on that. And I bet you that the house soiling will resolve itself from there.
Rochelle, do you have any recommendations, or does the behavior department recommend any type of potty pads or anything like that for people who are concerned that their animals might need an adjustment period for house training?
I don't recommend potty pads, and the reason why is because you're basically teaching your dog that's where to go, and they start to get into a routine of using those. And we want to get them back into a routine of going where you want them to go, which is basically outside, either in your backyard or during the walk. So if you have a puppy or a geriatric dog, that's a different story. And I would welcome them to contact us and talk more about that in detail. But if this is an adult dog who can already be inside the home for 8 hours and typically had not had accidents, I wouldn't start using potty pads now.
One person said that their dog loves enrichment toys when they are home, but then becomes stressed out when they leave and does not want to engage with any of an enrichment toys. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if your dog is too stressed to engage in eating, that's concerning. And I would, again, reach out to a behavior professional if that's the case. And if it's at all possible to set up a video cam in your house when you're gone to see exactly what it is your dog is doing. They may just not be engaging in the toy and sleeping all day, and then coming back and eating the toy, eating the food out of the toy when you get back home, and that's okay. But if they're nervous and not eating throughout the day and pacing and whining or barking, that's concerning. So a video camera can definitely help to see if your dog or cat needs extra help with a trainer.
Another pet parent is saying that their construction has begun in their apartment complex. And so far the cat has done well, and it seems like because this person is able to work from home. But once this person goes back to work, they're concerned about noise-related stress. Is there a way to tackle noise-related stress for cats or dogs?
Yeah, if your cat is showing severe signs due to the noise and construction, it may be a good time to reach out to your veterinarian for help with that, with medication. If it's not extreme, there are things that you can do to comfort your cat during noisy situations. Having a warm pad for them in a separate room that's further away from the noise as possible. I know sometimes that's not possible, but if the noise can be dampened somehow by either having a radio or television on, that can help too. And a nice cozy den for them to relax in is very helpful.
Another question we got, which might be great for you, Rochelle, as the cat behavior specialist, is a list or some kind of infographic or information available on the different types of toys that cats may engage with. And I know that each cat has a different sort of prey type that they're into, right? So could you talk a little bit about how people might experiment with finding out what kind of toys their cat enjoys?
Yes, there is a website, I believe it's called puzzletoysforcats.com, and they have an excellent exhaustive list of different things you can make from home or purchase. And just trying out different things with your cat, you know, like do they like to chase things? Do they like to rip things apart? If you notice your cat plays with his paws a lot and grabs things with his paws, I would definitely suggest one of those cylindrical cat dispensing food toys that I showed on the slide. If they aren't into using their paws and they want to chase things, you can even do a snuffle mat for your cat. Or even just use training. You can toss their kibbles and let them eat the food that way. So yeah, just really try to figure out what it is that your cat loves to do and how they play. And that can inform you on what kind of toy to get for food dispensing.
Another question we get, which is, I think, very interesting, is in regard to leaving a TV or radio on for your dog. Is that recommended, or is there any evidence that can bring comfort to a pet?
So it depends on what's playing. There's been some research that shows that different kinds of music are more beneficial than others, but honestly, like it depends on the pet, I think, the individual pet. So if you leave a talk radio on, for instance, that might annoy your pet, or just general music that you like. And you may not have thought before, like, does my pet hate my music? But you know, if you're listening to classical music and you see your animal relax to that faster than without it, then I would say use the classical music. Maybe start off with classical and then you can delve into other stuff. But I've also heard that just playing audiobooks with someone who has a soft, soothing voice can help too.
That's great. One other question that we had was in regards to a puppy that has been trained using potty pads in the home, but it seems that the puppy is eating its poop when the family leaves. So when the family is not around, that's when they do that. Do you have any advice on this situation?
So coprophagia, they're eating their own feces. It can be stress or it could be diet. So there are some treats that you can buy that supposedly keeps the dog from eating their own poo. I've had mixed results with that. For some clients it's helped and for others it has not. So again, reaching out to your veterinarian about that and to see if they're getting all of the nutritional needs that they require.
Another question we have was in regards to a camera treat device like the Furbo. What has been the behavior department at Pasadena Humane's experience with that?
So I personally haven't used one, but I have clients who have, and I've seen some stressed behaviors from their puppies or our young dogs that hear their owner's voice, a disembodied voice, and they're like, where's my owner? So even when the treat comes out, they're just like so focused on trying to find where their absent owner is that they don't even eat the treat that comes out. I think that device is designed more for pet parents, for us, than it is for dogs. Well, having a camera is great to watch what your dog is doing. I don't think we necessarily need to talk to them when we're absent. That might make them very confused.
And finally, do you have any recommendations for crate training, or how would someone sort of start the crate training process?
Ooh, I love that question. So we have to keep in mind that crating a dog could be a great way to potty train an animal or keep them safe when we're not around. But really think about how long your pet has to be in that crate. A dog in a crate for 8 hours is not really great. So unless you have someone coming If you can come home at lunchtime to let your dog out, or having maybe a pet sitter or another family member come in to check on the dog and let him out of the crate, I would not recommend it for a big length of time. And you want to make sure that the crate is never used as a punishment zone, like when your puppy is pawing up on you and mouthing you and you just can't take it, and that's his spot to like chill out. That's not really that recommended, but using the crate for potty training can be great, just for small amounts of time. And to get them used to the crate, all good things happen in the crate. New toys, food, treats, chewy things, and they get to choose to come in and come out, to make them feel like they have the choice to exit when they want to, so they never feel trapped. So you don't want to rush crate training, for sure.
And for those of you who have more specific questions regarding your pet, or things like crate training, for example, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at that free behavior helpline, or email our behavior specialist team at behavior@pasadenahumane.org. We did get a couple questions regarding problematic behaviors, and I want to remind you that next Wednesday, our behavior and training manager, Fernando Diaz, is going to be tackling that exact question. So if you're struggling with pulling on a leash, latching, or maybe your pet is having some stranger danger issues, he is going to tackle those during his webinar next Wednesday from 12 to 1. So please join us. You can register at pasadenahumane.org/workshops. Rochelle, we've been getting a lot of great comments thanking you for this really great webinar. And for those of you who had friends who registered but couldn't attend the live broadcast, please remind them that they'll be getting a link to this recording in an email tomorrow. All right, everyone. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you, everyone. Please be kind and be safe.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye.